Hello, and welcome to our Week 10 lab video. This week we will complete Lab 11, the musculoskeletal system. First, review the information on pages 213 to 216 in your lab manual. The functions of the skeletal system include support, protection, movement, blood cell production, as well as storage of important minerals for our body. Be sure to understand all of the functions of our skeletal system. Additionally, review the muscular system functions, which include stability and posture, heat production. Obviously, it allows movement for our bodies, circulation, as well as digestion. In Experiment 1, we will examine how temperature can affect the action of muscles. Gather your materials listed on page 217 in your lab manual and formulate a hypothesis about how muscles perform at different temperatures. What happens when they're cold? When they're hot? What happens when they're at room temperature? Follow the instructions for testing 3 different temperatures on the ability of your hand to open and close. Fill in your results on the data table on page 218 and answer the post-lab questions. For Experiment 2, please be sure to plan accordingly. This experiment takes 5 days to run. In this experiment, we will be using a piece of limestone rock as a model for bone. The rock is made up of calcium carbonate, which represents the bone. The acetic acid will represent our blood. What happens to the bone when you put it in the acetic acid? What does the bone help regulate? Gather your materials listed on page 219 in your lab manual. Set up your experiment and monitor it for 5 days. Each day, note the texture of the limestone and the pH of the solution in the acetic acid. Record your data on page 220 in your lab manual. When you're finished, answer your post-lab questions. Think about things like, what happens to the limestone, to the calcium? Where does it go? And what does that do to affect the pH of the solution or the blood? Lastly, in Experiment 3, you will design your own experiment to test muscle fatigue using either a rubber band or a rubber ball. Think about ways you can measure fatigue, similar to the way we measured it in Experiment 1. What variable will you test? Male versus female ability, age differences, time of day, dominant hand versus non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, how does your left hand perform? And if you're left-handed, how does your right hand perform? Run your experiment, collect data, and be prepared to submit questions on this data for your lab report this week. After you complete the lab, submit your lab report 8 in Blackboard, and as always, email me with any questions.